Good evening, one and all, and welcome along to episode 198, I believe, of the podcast. I'm joined tonight by Lauren and our special guest of this evening, Mr. Rob Phillips. Rob, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, guys. Can you see me?
No.
We only have audio for you at the minute, but that is okay.
I think I'm on some kind of a firewall here. Sorry, guys.
Don't worry, we can work with that.
All right.
Yep.
But how are things, Rob?
I'm doing good. We're trying to, enjoy these last few weeks before training camp starts. And I saw the 100 days to the season graphic show.
Yeah.
I'm like, my goodness, how did we get there? How did we get there so fast? But it was nice to see the guys on OTAs, back on the field doing some stuff last week. Even if it's no pads, even if it's something you can't read too much into, it was nice seeing the guys back on the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you guys been?
I think we're doing well. I think we're recovered from the draft at this stage. We didn't do the 24 hours this year. We did it over the 3 days. So I think we're managing okay. But I don't know. I won't speak for Lauren.
Yeah, no, I think we came through it fairly unscathed, and you can throw out all the paperwork that's amounted due to the draft and everything, and you're now looking at the players that we've picked. So, and then of course last week we got back to football, and there's the same old questions about Tyron Smith and some of the other guys that were on the sidelines injured last week. So
yeah.
Well, God bless you guys. And you guys need like a coffee sponsor or something for next year. You've earned that.
We're trying, and definitely with the upcoming season and a lot of primetime games, definitely think we're going to need coffee sponsors after this one. But we know we only have you for a short time, Rob. Obviously, you're busy. You've a lot going on in the off season, so we do appreciate the time. So I suppose, look, we'll just jump into it. Give us your initial thoughts on the draft itself. I mean, I think a lot of people were kind of miffed at some of the picks, but look, until they're on the field and they've played in games, we're not going to know how good or bad these picks are.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where realistically, you probably need to give it a couple years, 2-3 years, but nobody has that much patience. No, that's not fun for anybody to wait that long to hand out grades. So, we do it now. And I think it starts, typically a draft class is graded around the top pick first. And I think in Tyler Smith's case, he's a guy that not necessarily was on everybody's radar, at least not on the Cowboys' radar, until like the day of the draft. Or day before, it kind of got out there that they were interested in him. And he's not a guy that was considered, a surefire top first round pick. And usually when you're picking in the 20s, it's very subjective. It's at that point, it's what other teams, covet and value, who they value. So, there wasn't a lot of buzz around that pick, and there's never buzz around an offensive lineman anyway. And I think you combine those two things and maybe people have questions about it. For me personally, I have trust in their ability to evaluate that position, particularly in the first round. Now, they've had some misses in the offensive line, and we'll see if it works out. It may not. But going back to Travis Frederick 9 years ago, Will McClay was just kind of getting going, running the draft as the scouting chief. They've had nothing but hits, and going back to Tyron Smith in 2011. So they know what they're looking for. I think in particular with him, he's a big physical guy who's going to bring some nastiness, which I think they feel like they need in the offensive line up front, and some position flex. I know you guys have covered it for sure, that he could be a tackle down the road. He can immediately step in and compete for left guard. And I think there's kind of a theme with some of the picks that they made offensively and defensively, guys that are going to bring some nasty to them. And I think the way they lost that game to San Francisco in the playoffs, they decided they needed more of that. But an overall perspective, I mean, I think they filled – it's funny. I said it on our Talking Cowboys podcast. When I do these mock drafts, I just kind of go down the list, and I'm like, oh, well, they need this. So I'm going to find a player that fits this need. Down the line, making a list. And it rarely works out that way, but that's pretty much what they did. They found guys that filled needs. And it's kind of interesting how the shape of that draft was more offensive minded compared to defensive minded last year. They knew they had to address that side of the ball, and they did.
And I suppose one of the things that Mike kind of mentioned when we were going through the picks, Mike obviously is our college nerd, and he's done the pro scouting and that kind of stuff. He mentioned that a lot of these guys are kind of guys who are going to fit in the run blocking game, and that's kind of where they're going back to, and that would tie in kind of with what Coach McCarthy was saying is we're being beaten up in the run game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that has been going back to if you want to go back to the 90s and see what Jason Garrett's influences were when he was the head coach, it was power running game. Like that's what won them Super Bowls. And they had other great players. They had Troy Aikman, obviously, but they had a great running game. And that's what Garrett tried to establish here. And that pick for Ezekiel Elliott in 2016 was made to give Tony Romo turned out to be Dak Prescott as a quarterback. But even with Mike McCarthy, who has kind of been knocked over his career as more of a if you look at the first 4 games of the season, first month, they really did do that. It was a nice with Zeke and Tony Pollard and a really good mix there before her. And just kind of they just didn't have the same push as you mentioned off the line of scrimmage, and it got teams, were able to affect them up front with some pre-snap movement, and it just wasn't the same. And I think it's probably the biggest thing that held back the offense down the stretch, because to me, Dak is a different quarterback when he's got play action to work with, and everything is kind of clicking and flowing with balance. Like he can be an elite quarterback in this league. So I think that's more than anything. They're trying to address that and get back to that. And I think a healthy Zeke will certainly help.
Yeah, I think, and even the defensive players that we've picked up as well this year, I mean, I think they all fit a need that, they're all Dan Quinn, Dan Quinn's going to coach these guys up, and, they're all his sort of prototype players, the cornerback's 6'2". We've lost Randy Gregory, but we're bringing in Sam Williams, who by all accounts is further ahead than Randy Gregory was during his rookie minicamp as well. Is that what you sort of took away from that as well last week, from what you saw?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, losing Randy to free agency is interesting. It's kind of it's a polarizing subject. Like there's people that feel like, well, they can replace his production because he's kind of been in and out of the lineup for years, and he even missed some games last year. And he, at the end of the day, for all his talent and production, he had 6 sacks last year. So we can recreate that. I agree with that to some degree. Like I really like the Dorrance Armstrong re-signing, and I like I think Dante Fowler. Dan Quinn has a vision for you. Then I think obviously let's see it through because you saw what he did last year. But I think on the other side with Randy is he is a big time talent that can wreck a game. You saw what he could do with fumble recoveries and forcing strip sacks, and there's a limited amount of guys in the league who can do that. So that is a loss for them. But I think Sam Williams is a guy that they, when they look at his production in college and they look at his talent in the second round, he's a guy that kind of has similar skill set, a guy that's got a natural bend to him, who can get off the line of scrimmage quickly. And I think he's going to help that rotation. So they're going to try to piecemeal this thing together and replace him that way. And I think it's possible to do, certainly, especially if Williams can take a jump in year one, and maybe Dorrance Armstrong takes a jump. But losing Randy hurts, and it might we'll see how much Micah Parsons is involved as an edge rusher, but I think certainly that's got to be part of their plan too, just based on how talented he is in that regard.
Yeah. So coming out of this draft class, Rob, is there a pet cat there that you have, either, one of the lower round guys or maybe even one of the undrafted guys?
One of the lower round guys that caught my eye? Oh, man. I'm interested to see what John Ridgway, the defensive tackle. And, we were talking about this on our show. Defensive line is going to be full of competition, and there's no guarantee that, I think he probably makes the team. We'll see how much of a role he can carve out, but they're committed apparently to adding more size to this defensive front and being a little stouter against the run. And I feel like we've been talking about the run defense since, I don't know if you guys remember back to the Colts game in 2018. That's like, I swear that game is where it started. Where they gave up a bunch of yards there, and they gave up a bunch of yards to the Rams in the playoffs that year, and I don't know if they've consistently gotten it figured out. And I think, when Rod Marinelli was the defensive coordinator here, he didn't like the big, sloppy nose tackle in the middle. He wanted smaller, penetrating guys who can get some push with some quickness. I think there's been some difference of opinion there, and they're moving, with a new regime. I mean, they've moved more towards that with Ridgway possibly getting more involved. And, Neville Gallimore's a big defensive tackle. Osa is a guy that I think he's put on weight and some size. I saw him the other day. So they're trying to get Quentin Bohanna. And so I think Ridgway fits into that. So I'm curious to see if he can jump in at least on those running downs and make a difference there for the defensive front.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think obviously with Brent Urban going down injured midway through the season, that's where our run defense started to take a bit of a hit. Okay, we got Gallimore back, but Gallimore's traditionally a 3 technique. We've never had that. Nick Heatman has been banging on the table for God knows how long about getting a big trash can full of dirt for the one technique. Yep. And I think we've finally got that with both Bohanna and Ridgway. So it should be good to see how both of those work. Whether Bohanna can take the step up after his rookie year as well. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, the other late round pick I would say is Damone Clark is somebody. I don't know if we're going to see him on the field. Certainly not early this season. Might not be at all. We'll see. He's coming off the neck surgery, but talk to people and they felt like this, he's a young guy who could have been picked in the early middle rounds had not been for that injury, and highly productive at LSU. Like that's usually, and I don't know if I agree with this, but they've used the second round in recent years to kind of take a chance and get value. Well, in this case, they waited, this was a 5th round. I think it was a 5th round draft pick for a guy that could have maybe second round value for you at some point. So I really like that pick too.
Yeah.
And just kind of flipping back to the defensive tackles, Rob, is there a concern that one of the big names is going to end up on the chopping block? Because, I mean, we generally carry, say, 10 defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And, is there a possibility that, Tristan Hill, Neville Gallimore may end up being cut before the season starts?
It's a great question, Brian. I don't know if you can rule it out. I think Gallimore certainly is going to be a prominent player in the line. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really thought going into last year that he was going to be a huge piece of their defensive front. And the injury, that was a serious elbow injury he dealt with. I think they're excited about him coming back healthy this year. Tristan Hill, I mean, he's in the last year of his deal. Yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of competition there. Carlos Watkins is a guy that we haven't mentioned yet, who is a veteran guy that eats up some snaps for you there. So I think I agree with you. I think there's going to be a decent amount of competition there. Not only there, but on the edge rushers too. Like there's only, like you said, there's only so many spots, and now you got Bohanna trying to stick around and push for a spot and snaps, and Ridgeway, and it's this might be the most competitive position on the roster. In fact, I'd go as far as say, I think it is when you factor all those players in together.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being conscious of time, Rob. Obviously, if you need to go, we can't see you, so just shout it out.
I'm sorry about this. I don't know. I've got a firewall that just showed up today. Apparently, my bad.
Not at all. But I suppose one of the questions we have, and I suppose this kind of comes from the rookie minicamp and the OTAs, is that Conor McGovern seems to be getting the first run at left guard. Is that more a case of holding back Tyler Smith a little bit and just letting him get up to speed, or is that something we should be looking at? Because Matt Waletzko seems to have played at left tackle when Tyron went down.
Yeah, I would not read into it this early. I think it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, where when Zeke got drafted, I don't know if Garrett would even named Zeke the starter back then, like in OTAs and minicamp. Sometimes you kind of defer to your veterans early. And you know what? And in saying that, I do think there's going to be a competition there. I think Tyler Smith, like you guys have mentioned, they're going to have him work at two spots: left tackle, left guard. Obviously, when Tyron's healthy, that's his spot at left tackle. Ideally, for your first round pick, you would love him to seize that left guard job. They wouldn't guarantee. Stephen Jones was asked at the draft and wouldn't guarantee it. Obviously, you want him to come in and compete and earn the spot. I would kind of be surprised if he's not a week one starter, just because you're trying to fix that part of your line. And McGovern did start some games last year, and then they went back to Connor Williams. So it's too early to read into it. I do think McGovern is going to push for that job. But I think ultimately I think it'll be Tyler Smith, but we'll see. I mean, he's a young guy who has not played that position since I think his senior year of high school. But at the same time, I do think playing guard might be easier for him because things come faster at you and he can use his strength and his nastiness to get the job done. So, no, I wouldn't read too much into it. And I wouldn't read too much into the tackle stuff either, because I think, Josh Ball got some left tackle reps too without Tyron in there last week. And they're just going to try to look and find out who's the best guy for that swing tackle job. I would probably lean towards Ball first, just because he's been in the program for a year, even if he didn't play. And, I just think for Waletzko, it's going to be a little bit of a jump, some developmental time coming from North Dakota.
And sticking with the offensive line, obviously last week at McCarthy's press conference, there was a question from a Spanish reporter about Isaac Alarcon. And, obviously Mike was saying that he has rebuilt himself. Did you notice that as well? Or, I mean, obviously it's easy to see when it's just OTAs and they're not wearing the full pads and what have you, but does he physically look different now?
He looks great. He looks tremendous shape. He has added bulk and size since he's been here. And they really like his just natural ability. He's a good athlete. I think for him, it's just all the nuances of the position, the technique, the adjustments you have to make after the snap, recognition, pre-snap. I mean, there's so much that goes into that position beyond just the physical skill set. And so I think for him, it's just taking time, and with his natural ability, once he gets it, I think he does have a lot of potential. But I think, it's still just a learning curve for him because he hasn't played a ton of football. And there is so much that you've got to refine at that position when you're facing the level of talent at pass rushers that there are out there in the NFL.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see that the coaching staff were interested in him because, you always say that you don't want coaching staff to be going quiet on you. You want them shouting at you and spurring you on. And certainly you got that impression from Hard Knocks that, Philbin was constantly in his ear and, it was picked up on again. And okay, the team can focus on that if they want with Hard Knocks, but that was the impression that came across.
Yeah, a lot of hard coaching for him, and that's what he needs. I mean, that's and the thing I enjoyed the most about it was he seems receptive to that. Like you can tell he really wants to be a good player, and when you have that, you're willing to take any type of coaching that's constructive. Like that's probably half the battle right there.
Yeah, like I think the best comparison you can make is with Efe Obada, who came over from the UK, and I think it was his 4th season before he got in for any kind of meaningful snaps in the NFL at all. So, I mean, this is Isaac's 3rd season, isn't it? So hopefully we'll continue to see that development.
Yep, and it's still, as far as I know, it's still an exemption. He can be around. If he doesn't make the team, he can be back on the practice squad for the full year. So, I mean, that's just valuable experience that he's going to continue to get.
Absolutely. Have you time for one more question, Rob, or do we need to let you go?
I'm here. Hit me. What you got?
Go on. Go for it, Lauren. I know you've one or two more.
For all you guys know, I'm in a closet somewhere, but I'm here. Yeah, hit me with one more.
Wait a minute. You're throwing me under the bus here, Brian.
I can jump in with one anyway. The kicking situation. Obviously, we had Chris Nagar signed going into the draft, and we picked up Jonathan Garibay. Will they bring in an extra body just as an incentive to Garibay, or will they just go with Garibay through OTAs and into summer camps?
That's another good one, guys. I fully expect them to add another kicker, some more competition coming in. Yeah. That doesn't mean they don't like Garibay. I mean, it's really early, and he's a guy that I believe John Fossil really liked, through the draft process, and there's a reason he's here. But yeah, from a competition standpoint, I would be surprised if they don't add somebody. Probably somebody with some experience, veteran, just to have some competition, push each other, and see what happens. And it's been a while since they've been in this position. I mean, I guess not since. I mean, even when Brett Maher got the job, Dan Bailey was the veteran incumbent, and everybody thought Bailey was going to be the guy again until he wasn't. So I think you have to go all the way back to maybe when Bailey was a rookie, and feel like you just don't really know, and they don't have a lot of experience, but they just didn't see enough from Greg Zuerlein last year on a consistent basis. And I do think, his injury that he had last year, the back injury that he got the surgery in the spring, I think. And I just think physically he got right, but I don't know if he ever got in a rhythm, got his timing, all of that. And instead of running it back with him, they decided to make a change. And with that means some unknowns, because, Garibay has never done this at this level. So I think there's going to be some competition for sure.
And the one question I have, obviously, you're currently working on your Deep Blue documentaries. Any tips as to what the subjects are at all, or not?
I can't. I got to keep you in the dark, kind of consistent with my screen. I can't give it away just yet, Lauren. That's a great question. We're working on multiple projects right now, and I think we're pretty excited about them. I think we're going to tackle some good stories, some topics that are in the sports world, not just with the Cowboys, and we're knee deep in the middle of it. So. Looking forward to it. And it's nice to be doing these again, because we got back into it last year, but the year before there was nothing because of COVID. So these are a lot of fun, and I'll keep you guys in tune to what we're doing as soon as we're announcing them. It'll be coming up.
Please do, because I've loved them. Because I mean, I've been a fan since '79, so some of the stuff that you've picked on as well, the Doomsday 2 one a few years back, that was just as I was getting into the game. So
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, that was a great one. That was a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not as senior as Lauren. I'm 10 years less following the team, but yeah, I definitely the Darren Woodson one for me was an absolute standout, and how that guy is still not in the Hall of Fame baffles me.
Thank you guys. Yeah, me too. I thought maybe, I was maybe I was too naive, but I thought maybe we could open some eyes with that one, and maybe we did.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where there's other guys at the front of the line. Apparently, I mean, I'm trying to think. There was a safety voted in this past year. I was Leroy Butler, right? I believe so.
Yeah.
I just, Darren wasn't on the all-decade team in the 1990s, and I don't understand that one. And I think that, when you're talking about the Hall of Fame voters, maybe the fact that he's not, they left him off that one, whether that was an error or not, and then they haven't corrected it through the Hall of Fame voting. So, I think he's going to get his time, but it's going to, at least one more year.
I think with the rule changes that they've brought in, obviously there's potential that there's going to be greater classes going in. So, but hopefully that's not a sort of cheapening of the, watering down of the number of people going in. But
hopefully it means maybe they can right some wrongs and somebody like Everson Walls can get in. But the good news is they seem to safety position more and more safeties are getting in. So I do think it's a matter of time. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I do think you'll get in.
Yeah.
Very good. Rob, look, we're conscious of your time. So, I mean, if you need to get out of here, there's absolutely no problem. And we do appreciate you jumping on with us.
Yeah, better jump, guys, but it's always great talking to you. We really appreciate everything you do. The draft coverage is amazing. I'm glad you guys got caught up on your sleep and got some coffee and got recovered from that. So on we go. We're going to blink and it's going to be training camp. So anytime you guys need me to hop on, just let me know.
Absolutely. We will be in touch.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care, Rob. So there we go, Rob Phillips, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologize about the lack of visuals from Rob, but look, these things happen. It's like that old saying: don't work with kids and don't work with animals. So, internet seems to be the new one. But before we get out of here, Lauren, was there anything you wanted to talk about coming out of the OTAs from last week, or what you're looking forward to in this week's upcoming camp practices?
Well, obviously Jalen Tolbert, we discussed on Thursday night that, obviously he was working with Britt Brown because of the hamstring. Yeah. That was addressed in the press conference. It should only be a couple of days that he was out.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get to see something from him. I'd like to see Tyron Smith playing a little bit, even if it's only a couple of snaps at this level. Just to know that it was a short-term thing, or they're able to manage it. Maybe even find out a bit more about James Washington, what the situation is with that. I think it's only a 2-week injury from, again, what they were saying on Talking Cowboys today, but still it's nothing's confirmed for it. But as the Cowboys don't have to produce an injury report, but again, at this stage, it's more about them getting the install in of the playbook, so that when they get to training camp, it's they can hit the ground running after the sort of first 4 or 5 days acclimatization period, and then you get into the full pads and fire off on that.
Yeah, and the combines are going to be spicy. Obviously, we have the Denver Broncos. I think there's a few of our O-line men are going to want to get their hands on a certain Mr. Randy Gregory.
Oh yeah, so definitely.
Watch out for that. I think the other one is the Chargers are the other team we're gonna scrimmage
Chargers
with.
Are the other, so you're going to get a healthy practice for whoever's on the offensive line when you're going up against Bosa and You know,
Yeah.
they're strong across the entire defensive line as well. So,
Yeah.
and they're known to trick it up with, you know, sending multiple guys and dropping into zone blitzes and what have you. So, you only have to look back to week 2 last season to see how they attack. So
Yeah.
should be a good matchup. And of course, it's good for the players because it's getting to hit somebody that you're not hitting day in day out.
Mm.
You know, and it just spices up the training camp a bit, if nothing else. I mean, we used to do, when I was playing, we used to have the odd scrimmage with one of the local teams that we ended up playing 3 or 4 times a year, so it almost was as bad. But it
Yeah.
just when you were doing the training sessions, you know, you were able to go up and it was somebody else to hit rather than the same guy that you were hitting every week. Or
Yeah.
and you know, you go out drinking with these guys as well, so it's you you don't necessarily hit them as hard in training camp, but if you're going up against an opposition member, then you know all bets are off. So
All bets are off. Absolutely. So I don't think there's anything else we need to cover tonight. As you say, this was just we did this show just because Rob was available, and we had been trying to get him on since the draft just to get his thoughts on what had happened. So Mike and the guys will be back at the normal time of 9 o'clock here in the UK and Ireland, 10 o'clock in Europe, 3 o'clock Texas time, 4 o'clock East Coast, and 1 o'clock
Pacific
on the West Coast of the US. So I you were saying, Lauren, you're missing on Thursday, and I'm missing as well. So
I will play it by ear, but yeah, possibly missing on Thursday.
Possibly, but
Yeah.
before we get out of here, we will just pay the bills, and Lauren, I'll get you to give a shout out to Barry.
Right. Okay. So obviously, when you're booking tickets for this year's games, give Cowboys Experience a call. Drop onto their website for the ultimate meet and greets, tailgating, game day packages. Get to meet current players, former players, Zach Martin, for example, Michael Gallup. You know, there's signing opportunities, and of course, we're looking to set up a package for next year for everybody going across. And if you do book with Cowboys Experience, use the discount code UK Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. Because you get free stuff and you get chocolate pudding. And of course, shout out to all of our fellow media and content creators who are so willing of their time. As we say, we had Rob there willing this evening to give us his time. And as he said, anytime we can grab him in the off season, we will do that. You know, Rob, Nick, Dave, Derek, the whole team at the Cowboys are so willing to provide us with their time. So we do appreciate that. So Lauren, I'm going to give it over to you to wrap us out of tonight's show.
Yeah, so obviously that was a great show tonight with Rob. Much appreciating his time. Very busy man, and we've been trying to track him down for a couple of months now, I think it is. So it's great that he's been able to get on. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you Thursday night.
Good night.